Hey everyone, finished watching the last episode of Power Rangers RPM Danger and Destiny Part 2. Dr. K gives Tanaya the new virus to upload to Venjix. She heads to Truman's office. The other Rangers receive a coded message from Colonel Truman. It's directions to a hybridization facility. They fight off the grinders and free the prisoners. Ziggy stays behind to protect K. Venjix appears himself, but the Rangers can't risk morphing while Venjix has access to the biofield. Tanaya contacts K. The virus is uploaded, but K tells her to wait before activating it. K analyzes files from Venjix and restores the Ranger's ability to morph. Dr. K sets up a booby trap. Once Venjix tries to access the biofield, it'll backfire and delete his grinders. It works, but he detects Tanaya's location and fires at it. Tanaya is shaken but alive. Unfortunately, Crunch is right outside the door, about to break in. Dylan wakes up and rushes to help her. Dr. K types away at her computer. Ziggy watches in awe as two figures begin to form before him. Scott, Flynn, and Summer bravely stand against Venjix, but it's a losing battle. Just as all hope seems lost, a familiar sound comes from overhead. They look up to see Jem and Gemma. They fire at the control center above them. It collapses. Dylan pulls Tanaya out just in time. Crunch is left inside as it falls to the ground, crushing Venjix. Jem and Gemma reunite with the others, and they see Dylan and Tanaya floating down with a parachute. Venjix's forces are demolished, and the Rangers prepare for life after being Rangers, though it's not going to be normal life exactly. Scott has been promoted to head of Eagle Squadron. Jem and Gemma are the newest recruits, and Tanaya is adjusting to living as a human. Dr. K brings out a suitcase and solemnly requests the Rangers turn in their morphers. Dr. K informs the team that her and Ziggy are starting an elementary school. She actually calls him by name. Summer plans on leaving with Dylan and Tanaya. Dr. K stops them to return Dylan's music box, but he tells her that she can keep it. Dylan, Summer, and Tanaya drive out into the desert. They stop and water a lone flower, take a walk, and see more and more flowers. Over a hill, a new field of flowers is growing. Back in the garage, Dr. K stores away the suitcase with the morphers, but she doesn't notice an ominous red light glowing from one of them. This is a near-perfect finale for what's easily the best season Disney produced. The action is fast-paced and tense, and almost everything gets a satisfying payoff. One oddity, this finale doesn't have any big moment with the whole team morphed at once. The last time that happened, I think, was way back in Ninja Storm. In a way, I feel this makes sense. Scott, Flynn, and Summer are the ones facing Venjix themselves, and they were the first RPM Rangers. Dylan rescues Tanaya, Jem and Gemma come back to life and kill Venjix and Crunch. Their resurrection is handled well in a way that doesn't feel forced or out of nowhere. Compare them to Genji back in Mystic Force. Ziggy hangs back with Kay, which makes sense. Someone has to be there to defend her while she's working on her computer. Venjix isn't a villain with a lot of depth, but he doesn't come across as boring like Mordecon. I think Venjix was utilized very well. He's used sparingly early on, and he doesn't have a body, giving him an excuse as to why he doesn't join battles himself. Once he gets a second body, he's imposing and powerful to just the right amount. RPM had a good balance. The one thing that I think would have been nice to see here is if we saw Hicks and Vasquez returning to normal. They're not super important characters, but they had names and got featured at least twice. I wouldn't be surprised if there was something of them shot for this episode that got cut for time. I was kind of disappointed Crunch never got any kind of redemption. He did at least get a big final moment. His role here reminds me of Chop Top, Bill Moseley's character from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Chop Top and the heroine Stretch are at the top of a surreal structure. After a desperate battle, Chop Top is wounded by a chainsaw and tumbles down a tunnel into a collapsing underground. Crunch also battles intensely with Dylan and Tanaya, and like Chop Top, dies in a fall. Crunch's manic personality always reminded me of Chop Top, and I'm curious if there was any inspiration there. When the Rangers turn in their morphers, I'm reminded of back in Mighty Morphin when the Rangers turn in their power coins to Goldar to rescue their parents. I'm curious if any influence was taken from that scene. The Rangers all go their separate ways in the end, and I like how they were all handled. Flynn gets a very quick bit talking about him and his father building computer systems. I didn't know they knew computers, at least I didn't know his father knew anything about computers. Ziggy and Kay want to start a school. Alright, kinda random, but then again, I don't know it wouldn't be. Scott achieves his father's respect like he's always wanted and raises to the position he's always strived for. Jem and Gemma join him, and that makes sense for them. Relatively normal civilian life definitely wouldn't suit them. Dylan and Tanaya set out to find a place they belong, and Summer tags along because she likes Dylan. We never do learn Dylan or Tanaya's true names, but the characters seem at peace with that. The final shot of this episode generated a ton of speculation, with fans wondering if it was meant to imply Venjix returning in the future. This leads into my thoughts on RPM's legacy. Unlike most other Disney seasons, RPM actually got some follow-up. On the downside, none of it is anywhere close to the quality RPM had. The following season, Samurai featured a crossover special with Scott returning. Unfortunately, he was the only returning character if you don't count Grinders. Due to either budgetary or union issues, he never demorphs, and his actor, Eka Darville, was credited under a different name. The special, Clash of the Red Rangers, established that RPM exists in an alternate dimension or timeline. There really wasn't any other way to handle bringing RPM back, so it's understandable. This crossover is handled in a similar way to SPD's Wormhole, where the returning team is somewhere in the middle of their season. Super Megaforce had an episode where the Megaforce Rangers go to Corinth, allegedly. Samurai, surprisingly, recreated the dusty desert look of RPM very faithfully, but here they just used footage from the accompanying Sentai series Gokaiger and called it Corinth. According to Super Megaforce, Corinth at some point in the future becomes a dark, lifeless crisscross of roads with a semi-sentient Zord. Megaforce made plenty of bizarre choices, but this is definitely one that tops my list. Professor Cog, a villain from Clash of the Red Rangers, returns as well. Ninja Steel's Dimensions in Danger featured Gemma as a returning ranger, but weirdly toned her down considerably. It would have been nice to hear at least one boom time from her or something. Beast Morphers features the biggest RPM comebacks. The main villain of that season turns out to be Venjix. The villain Scrozzle is designed with an RPM attack bot aesthetic. Dr. K and Colonel Truman make cameos. I could tell the creators were trying to be clever, but they just went about the reveals and returns in about the most bland, unimpressive way they could. Far gone were the days of RPM's brilliant ability to build on its stories, expand the characters, and provide satisfying resolution. RPM has popped up here and there in the comics, but nothing substantial. Its biggest legacy, though, has to be its reputation among fans. Most older fans will point to RPM as their absolute favorite season. Even younger or new fans enjoy it. Some people that find it hard to get into Power Rangers at all even enjoy RPM. Much of the credit goes to the creative team for pulling Power Rangers out of a rut and doing something creative with it. The cast as well deserves thanks. I can't think of a single weak performance. The stunt crew has honed their craft by this point, bringing amazing choreography every episode. The music team also gave RPM a unique sound that stands out greatly from the past Disney seasons and even the Saban seasons. Except for the theme song, I don't know what they were thinking there. All around, RPM is my favorite Disney season. So I have to make a decision for next time. Do I go on to Samurai next, or do I go over that weird thing that comes before it? Or maybe I could do a thing on that one toy commercial. Well, that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. See ya.
An ancient enemy of the Power Rangers has returned. And with a magic spell has opened a wormhole. Her evil plan, eliminate the very first team of Rangers. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. The battle begins next Saturday on ABC Kids.